Welcome, everybody, to the Takeaways edition of the Vegas Nation podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Fang, and as always, happy to be joined by a good friend of ours here at the show from Tape Don't Lie, Marcus Johnson, covering all things Raiders, watching all the film, so you don't have to spend the 50 hours a week that he might be checking it all
Yeah,
out. Marcus, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
no problem. Thank you for having me once again.
Of course, this show is brought to you by Station Casinos, STN Sports. Download the mobile app today. And the reason I wanted you on today is because I want to take a deeper dive into the 2023 NFL draft, obviously, particularly for the Raiders. I think there's a lot that we're not talking about. I've been talking a lot about the number 7 pick. What's at number 7? Quarterback, defense. But we're not really delving in to a lot of the Jack Campbells of the world or the Julius Brents. And those are the guys I'm hoping to get a take on from you. First of all, I wanted to get a take on probably what you have as an opinion on one of the deeper cornerbacks that could really pop off the page for the Raiders if they were to take somebody later into like round 3 with that 100 pick or down the road here in the draft.
You mentioned somebody that I really like that they could take day two or day three is Julius Brents. I know Julius Brents. He has really good tape. Definitely a tough player. Can tackle well, covers pretty well as well. It showed a lot of athleticism, not as much in the 40 time, but with the vertical leap and all the other stuff. So he's definitely somebody that you can look at that can help out and come in right away and help out. And there's somebody the Raiders have met with at the combine. So I definitely like him deeper in the later rounds. I like another player that you can look at is a guy like Darius Rush from South Carolina. That's a player that you could maybe look at in the later rounds. He had a pretty good Senior Bowl, and the Raiders are big fans of the SEC. Half the draft picks they made last year, the SEC picks. So there's definitely a guy out there as well. And then there's another guy I like from Miami. He's Tyjae Stevenson. Definitely had another Senior Bowl guy from Miami that you could definitely watch and maybe pick up late in the later rounds for cornerback. And even earlier than that, if you don't want to go too far, there's players like Deontay Banks and from Maryland. We don't know how far he's going to fall. You know, especially with not really the buzz of him getting first round buzz. I know a lot of people do like him, so he's kind of a day 2, day 3 guy. And when you're a day 2 player, you could fall all the way to 70 or something like that, just from people drafting for need more in the day 2 than they do for a best value player, right? So
Right.
you can see somebody like him falling, and but those are some of the players that I like. And another one is Riley Moss too, definitely a tough player from Iowa. Had a great 40 times as well, great combine as well, and he has pretty good tape. So as somebody they could look at, there's a couple guys I think they could look at later on in the draft.
There's a name when you say Iowa that comes up to me, but it's on the tight end side of the thing. That's Sam Laporta. When you look
Uh,
at a guy like Sam Laporta, do you think that he could be an asset to the Raiders?
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm a real big fan of Sam Laporta. He's
Nice.
definitely somebody that could be like a, split out and play, even a little bit wide receiver as a tight end. He's a great route runner. Definitely could run a lot of option routes, and there's so many things that Josh McDaniels likes to do. Sam Laporta is somebody that they could look at. Usually when they draft tight ends, they like them over 250 pounds. Sam
Yeah.
Laporta came up around 245. So I don't know how nitpicky they're going to get with that because usually historically when just from they follow a lot of the Patriots measurables. So historically, the Patriots, they never drafted a tight end under 250, but they might be some outliers that they might like. And Sam Laporta is one of those players that I really like on film. He's one of my favorite tight ends in the draft, and because he's a route runner, think people don't are knocking his blocking a little bit, but I think he's a
Okay.
better blocker than people are giving him credit for. I think it's something he can do. He might not be the best in the world at it, but he's definitely a good player, especially just receiving wise. He's not he can beat tight ends, safeties, and those type of players and linebackers is very tough, very difficult for him to be guarded by those type of players. And his game against Illinois is pretty special. That's one of the best games to watch on film if you want to get you try to see what he is like and what kind of player he is.
Yeah.
But he's definitely somebody that I have my eye on for the
Where would
Raiders
you
as well.
sift him out at in terms of rounds and position in the draft?
So with tight end, there's a lot of depth at tight end, and I
Yeah.
really see him more of like a day 2 player. I don't see him as a first round player in my opinion at this point. I think like the Loose Musgraves, Michael Myers, and Dalton Kincaid. Those are more of the guys that probably go first round. But I see him going around day 2. He might be an option at 38 if they
Yep.
really like him. If they that's somebody they like. He might be around at 70. It depends on how there's a run on tight ends or something like that. There might be a run on cornerbacks in the second round. So that's it's kind of just he'll be right there when the Raiders pick in 38 or maybe 70. I think he's going to fit in that range, and maybe they could trade up for him if something that they like. But yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of Sam Laporta.
I was too. So I'm really glad that what you saw in film is something I saw in film because
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a film expert, but by all means, I look at what's going on film, and I think I could for the most part go, okay, I know what's standing out here. I know what's flashing, and I like Sam Laporta as well. Some of the names on the quarterback part of the later rounds have been surfacing around, particularly with Jake Haener from Fresno State. Another
Mhm.
one's Tanner McKee. But when I spoke with Daniel Jeremiah about him, he was saying that he kind of suffered behind a bad offensive line. So when you think about those prospects, is there one over the other that you think could be a good developmental type quarterback with the Raiders under Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, I think, I mean, from their perspective, I would probably say it would probably be Tanner McKee if
Mm-hmm.
they're going to pick between those two guys, because Tanner McKee is just a bigger quarterback. I think Jake Haener is a little bit on the smaller side. I think he's barely 200 pounds, and he's barely 6 foot. So there's a lot more, get to worry about with him. Even though he's
Right.
big, he's a really tough player and he's really a big gamer. I mean, just a size thing. You would rather go with Tanner McKee, who's 231 pounds, definitely a bigger quarterback, and he has a lot of pro system in him. He coming from Stanford, and the Stanford team is not really good around him. Didn't he didn't have a lot of players that he could throw to that would make impacts, or those type of guys around Tanner McKee. So I think from a developmental perspective, if I was see myself in the Raiders' shoes, I think they would like the bigger quarterback. I think Tanner McKee kind of hit through some of their like their measurables as well too, some of their kind of their combine things. So I could see him coming in there and being somebody they could develop in the later rounds, because Tanner McKee doesn't have a lot of buzz around him right now. So I could see him kind of falling into the third round or maybe even the fourth round, where they could pick him up and kind of try to develop him from there.
So, as we stay on the offensive side of the ball, this is just a question that kind of came to me as we've been speaking here. When you look at what the Raiders have done in the offseason with the wide receivers and how they already had Hunter, they already have Devontae, they have Philip Dorsett now, they kept Keelan Cole, and then they add Jacoby Myers. Do you
Hmm.
feel like that there's any chance whatsoever that they might take a flyer on like a late round type of wide receiver prospect, somebody that they can try to grow from the ground up with this team?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're looking for speed. They're looking for really fast guys. I mean, just from doing my research, they met with 4 wide receivers at the combine. They met with
Okay.
Tyler Scott from Cincinnati, who's a speed guy. They met with Marvin Mims from Oklahoma,
Yes.
speed guy. They met with Zay Flowers, which I don't think Zay Flowers is going to be in the later rounds, but
Probably not.
speed
Yeah.
guy, right? Speed guy. So I think they're looking for a Philip Dorsett type of player. Philip Dorsett's he's 30. He's coming off of like having 20 catches last year, and he's definitely being paid league minimum. So I don't think it's somebody that everybody's like, we're gonna depend on him during the season. So I could see them drafting somebody in that similar sense of Philip Dorsett in the later rounds. And I think like the player like Tyler Scott from Cincinnati definitely has some pretty good tape, and he can really stretch the field a lot. And the same with Zay Flowers, but Marvin Mims is somebody that they're really interested in, and I think that he has that ability to stretch the field as well. So he ran a 4.38 at the combine, and if you go watch him when he played with Caleb Williams, it's totally different tape than he had this year, not playing with Caleb Williams. So you can see how affect a quarterback kind of affected his draft stock a little bit, but that is somebody that I think they might try to pick up in the later rounds. But I think wide receiver is going to be a position that might shock people when
Yeah.
they pick some of these guys, because I still think that they're looking for more speed at the position, and probably some more yak guys for Jimmy Garoppolo if they want him to be the starter, because he depends on yak a lot.
On the defensive side of the ball, there's, I think, in certain positions, a lot of depth, and other ones, not so much. Like we were talking about cornerbacks earlier, but when it comes down to interior defensive linemen, there doesn't seem to be a lot of depth. Is there somebody that you think that you could put a name on that you would say would be a good second day type guy that could help be somebody that the Raiders need and the interior defensive line?
I think there's a couple guys, to kind of see what they've been doing with nose guard. They haven't, sorry, nose tackle. They haven't really kind of, even though they have Neil Farrell there, you're a little worried about how he played year one. So I think it's a guy like Siaki Ika from Baylor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a guy who's not getting a lot of buzz at all right now, but he has some pretty good tape, and somebody to be available day two, day three that can come in and play nose tackle right away. And he has the ability to kind of develop as a pass rusher. His junior tape is really good, and that's his senior tape is not as good as it was his junior tape, but you still see the ability to rush the passer. You still see he's a monster and hard guy to move, and he's really a great player there. Some other players that are out there that had great off seasons. That I mean, their tape didn't really match it though. I think Zach Pickens from South Carolina, he's had a great off season. Really showed a lot of athleticism. He's played defense tackle for South Carolina. I think his tape is a little underwhelming, but I think it's somebody they might like. Same thing with Keanu Benton. I think his tape really doesn't match as much as his ability that he's shown at the Senior Bowl, because he had a great Senior Bowl. He went out there and dominated the 1-on-1s, had a great Senior Bowl out there. And another player that I kept my eye on just because he got a lot of pressure in the MAC conference was Carl Brooks. I think somebody that they might be able to get late day 3, in my opinion, probably like in the 5th round, just because he is kind of a little bit of a tweener, but he does, you can't pay 300 pounds on defensive end like he did in college. He's probably got to play inside and played inside primarily at the Senior Bowl, but he got pushed around a little bit, as a week going along. So I think his draft stock's not on the rise, but I think it's somebody that can get late day 3. Carl Brooks from the kid, I think it's called Bowling Green off the top of my head, but yeah,
Oh,
that's somebody
Bowling
they could
Green.
look at.
Okay.
Yeah, from Bowling Green. So there's a
Okay.
player that they could look at in the later rounds for defensive tackle.
Well, right there, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about current events with you, and I've got more defense questions because I think that is a side of the ball that the Raiders so desperately need to take care of, hopefully through this draft. Let's talk about it more on the other side.
Perfect.
Welcome back to the Takeaways edition of the Vegas Nation podcast. It's Heidi Fang here with Marcus Johnson from Tape Don't Lie. I love that show. You guys got to check it out. What have you guys been working on with Tape Don't Lie?
So this week we're going to do tight ends and defensive tackles. So we're going to be doing that, and then I'm doing some Clayton Tune stuff, kind of warming up for watching some of these other quarterbacks and just getting prepared for the draft. I mean, we're 2 weeks away,
Yeah.
so we're just be working on that, getting prepared for that, doing as many breakdowns as I can, and getting them out there for the people.
Nice. And that's what I'm hopefully doing here as well. And part of what I want to break down is some news that broke today. Devin White from Tampa Bay looking for a trade. Would you or
Mhm.
would you not pursue him for the Raiders?
If I was the Raiders, I wouldn't. The real reason I think a lot of it, what they really need is somebody that can um, play pass coverage, and I don't think that he's an upgrade from Denzel Perryman in that regard. I think if you wanted to go after Devin Wright, I understand he's a little bit of a younger player, and he
Hmm.
had a really good year when they went to the Senior Bowl, but since then he's been pretty down, especially last year. He did not play well at all. There's a lot of effort issues that he showed and things like that. And maybe he needs a fresh start, and that will help out. But I wouldn't expect the Raiders to take a flyer there because I mean, even though he does play the run really well, he hasn't the last couple of years. And I think that's something I mean, it all depends on the price. And I'd rather, if they're going to trade for somebody, they could have traded for like Zach Mason or something like that to kind of help out with the offensive line a little bit. But yeah, Devin White, it's he's a big name, and I think a lot of fans would want him, and it
Yeah.
make like a lot of fan excitement. But I don't know on the field how that would happen. But you never know. I mean, if they trade him and maybe he needs that fresh start, and he comes in here and he plays a lot better, maybe you don't never know. But I mean, he was playing with Tom Brady and a lot of leaders over there, and he's not seeing that effort that you would like to see from your linebacker. So that's kind of the issue I have with Devin White a little bit, is that the name hasn't been matching the play.
Okay. Fair enough. I was looking at it and thinking, well, fifth year guy, coming up on the fifth year, thinking, okay, yeah, 11, I think it's 11.8 that he'd be due. But
Yeah.
at the same point, like, you would have to give up some capital to be able to get him. And as we've been
Mhm.
talking about defense and trying to get other players, that's where I wonder, like, in this draft, how deep is linebacker? And do you think that there's a stud that it could really help the Raiders in terms of coverage, like you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean the main guy is Jack Campbell. I think Jack Campbell is probably the best linebacker in the draft. I know a lot of people like Trenton Simpson, but Jack Campbell just plays the run and actually plays NFL linebacker. A lot of problems with college football right now is not a lot of guys playing NFL linebacker. They're a little bit. They're kind of basically playing safety, and they're not a lot of guys coming downhill taking on guards. And that's what Jack Campbell does. He's a little bit of old school linebacker, but he also has modern athleticism that you want at linebacker position. He really reminds me of Leighton Vander Esch,
Oh, yeah, okay.
who's played like 10 years in the NFL and was
Right.
a really good player before injuries. And I think that's somebody that he reminds me of. But I don't know how far Jack Campbell's going to fall. I mean, 38 might be the best option to get him there.
Okay.
But after that, I mean, it kind of goes back. I mean, if they feel like the linebacker depth in this draft, which I don't think is very good, I think once you get past some of these guys, I think you're just taking flyers, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
especially after like, Simpson and Campbell. I think after that, you're kind of seeing some guys that are a little undersized, and they don't play the run very well, right? And then I mean, especially in today's modern linebackers, I mean, they got to be able to do both. I think the linebacker's first job is to play the run. A lot of these guys are kind of like I said, they're playing safety and they're having to learn how to play NFL linebacker at the next level. And some of these guys will take some more development, but the linebacker class is kind of on the weaker side. So I mean, it kind of gives you like maybe they might go after Devin White because of that, but hopefully they have a plan for that and maybe they like the class better than most people do. They may have some guys they really like that they feel like can come in and help. Because another guy that Noah Sewell is another player that they could probably get in the later rounds, who fits what really they want at inside linebacker. He's 250 pounds, blitz as well, and he has the ability to come downhill and take on some guards too. So I think a couple of those players like Sewell and Campbell are some really good guys that could probably find in the later rounds.
So would you say that, let's say after the third round, if the Raiders have not yet drafted a linebacker, that there's any chance of getting anyone there that's really talented outside of maybe taking a flyer on somebody that may have some upside to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's players like Henley from Washington State. The player from Tulane, I can't think of his name right now, but he's a player. I think it's Dorrance Robinson. He's a player that I really like too. That in the later rounds, like he had a really good game against USC, and that's the type of player that you probably want to look at past like third round, day two, late day three type of linebacker, because I just think that even though he's undersized, he's still able to come up and play linebacker a little bit. I think Overshown from Texas, like I said, he's a little bit of a safety, really, really
Mm-hmm.
skinny guy. And that's how most of the linebackers are later on in the draft. So I think that, if they want a starting linebacker, they have to get one a little earlier than they might want to if they make that decision. Because after like Sewell and some of those guys, which I still think Sewell probably be their day three. I don't think Sewell is going to be a guy that they're going to have to take in the third round or take in the second round. So that could be somebody they could look at probably in the fourth round or something like that can come in and play linebacker for them. But those are a couple other players that I like in the deeper rounds. Or it's probably Dorrance Robinson and Overshown from Texas.
All right, I'm gonna look them up when I get home.
Okay.
Next thing is, how much did the Lions kind of change the scope of what could happen to the Raiders by trading Jeff Okuda? And now at 6, you're predicting, well, they're probably going to go cornerback, right? So you figure there's Christian Gonzalez, there's Devin Witherspoon. But to that complexion, you think about the fact that maybe one or two of them is available there. Who knows what'll happen with the Cardinals pick, how that works. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of shuffling. And so I wonder, and this is the question and all of that, where does Joey Porter fit in terms of talent next to Witherspoon and next to Christian Gonzalez?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of fall off, in my opinion, from Joey Porter to those guys. I think Joey Porter, and just in the Big Ten, I think he was getting beat more often than I thought, and he had some little bit of issues in press coverage and a little bit of issues on off coverage. But he just had that length and he does have the NFL pedigree, so I think he's going to be coming there and probably be a good solid player for you. But I couldn't see him being anywhere like close to 7. I think the Raiders would have to trade back if they even thought about taking him, because I think this is way too high for him. I think he's more of like in the 20s type of cornerback, or maybe even high second round. It's not
Okay.
that type of player that I would, really fall in love with at 7, because I just think it's a little bit of a reach. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, I didn't want him at 7.
oh, okay.
I was thinking like if
Just
you trade down for him, like
yeah.
would you trade out of the 7 spot kind of and look to see like where you could maybe get somebody like him if you didn't feel that, let's say the Lions take like Witherspoon, right? And
Mhm.
then maybe you didn't want Gonzalez, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but just saying like maybe he didn't fit what you were thinking, so you can trade down and get Porter. But like how far down would you go?
Probably like 15 and
Okay.
down. that's probably what I go for Joey Porter. I wouldn't probably take him before 15, in my opinion. And even 15 is a little bit rich for me, but I know some people do like him that high. It's just I don't know. I just saw him get beat by some nobodies in the Big Ten a little bit too much on film, so
Okay.
that kind of worried me a little bit. But yeah, I think that later on in the back end, or maybe if they want to trade back in from 38 and take him, I think that would be better
Okay.
than kind of trading back. And because I don't know how far you would want to trade back. I mean, I don't know where the Titans are picking, but if they want a quarterback, they might trade up and try to
I think
come
they're
get a
11.
quarterback. Are there 11?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's probably one of the best possibilities for a trade back is the Titans because I know they want a quarterback, but the Commanders are creeping back there too. So it could be some guys that come up and try to get a quarterback, and the Raiders could trade back, and that's probably when I would take Joey Porter. But 11 is even a little too high for me in there because I mean if you trade back, you could Christian Gonzalez might still be there. So
Is it the scariest thing to think that the Raiders might reach in this draft for somebody? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's more about like what I'm scared about is them being safe.
Ah,
And taking like a safe player that like is not going to get as excited because I think offensive line is the secret one. I think if they decide to take offensive line high at 7, I think some fans might be a little bit disappointed in that. But I think that's a wild card. And like Peter Skoronski, people are really high on him, and he could come in and play guard right away for the Raiders, and he could be a starter in my opinion. I think he has a potential to be an All Pro guard, and that's not gonna get fans excited. Fans are probably like, "Oh my God, we took a guard at 7," but he'll come in and he'll play really well. And Jimmy Garoppolo needs a good offensive line, so I think that's something they might look at. And I think it's something they're gonna look at in the later rounds because I was doing some investigations on that. And when Josh McDaniels was with the Patriots, it felt like they drafted linemen every single draft, and they drafted 2 last year. So they kind of kept that going. And I think in the third and fourth rounds, I think we might see somebody get drafted for the offensive line no matter what. Just even if they I feel like they like to stack those guys and get some younger players they could develop at that position.
now I wrote down a bunch of names on my list here. We've actually touched on almost all of them without me even throwing them at you. So, but
Okay.
there's two that we did not yet break down, and I really want to get your take because it's a name that Brian Baldinger threw out in one of the podcasts. Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame. What have you seen from Isaiah Foskey that would really flash and say to you, this guy is a Raider?
Yeah, I think for Isaiah Foskey, I think with him, he's just kind of more of a sound player. I think he plays the run really well. I think his junior year was a lot better than his senior year. His junior year was very dominant on tape. You saw a lot of great things from him, a lot of great bend, and kind of really didn't see it as much this year. But he's definitely somebody I would say that you probably want to take round late day 2 in the third round. But I think what he brings is just solid play. I think he would come in and be a solid player right away, just because the way he plays the run and kind of his pass rush skills, kind of the lack of bend is why you would want to take him later on. But he still was a great productive player over at Notre Dame, and I think that's kind of just says something just for the production that you get from a defensive end. I think a lot of that translates for production. So when you get that much production from somebody, you really like it. But I think like a lot of the things, some of his limitations, is kind of the stiffness and little things like that might make him fall. But he's still a good pass rusher. He's a very powerful type of guy. Likes to do a lot of power rushing and stuff like that. But he's just the lack of bend. But playing the run and kind of development player, edge rusher, I think he's kind of a good player you can look at. You can get late day 2.
Okay, so we talk about names here, and I know I can do this to you, which is great. I could just throw a name like BJ Olajari at you, and
Yes.
you know right away who I'm talking about. What is great about BJ Olajari that could make him somebody that could help the Raiders on defense?
So BJ Olajari, I think his pass rush skills. I think his ability he has crazy bend. I talk about Isaiah Foskey not having the bend. BJ Olajari is the opposite. He has great bend. He definitely needs to develop a little bit, getting a little bit more consistent as a pass rusher. But when he wins, it's beautiful to watch. So that's definitely something that he would come and do day one. I think he'd be able to rush the passer. You could mix him in, get some guys some rest, and he can come in on third downs and he can just get after the passer and really show his ability to do that. And and he has a lot of plethora of moves. Darnell Wright used to talk about him, pretty well. I mean, because he says he just all the moves that he has and he can make. That's just my problem with BJ Ojari is that he's really, really bad against the run. He just can't. He just gets pushed around,
Mm.
and I think that's kind of an issue and why I can see him falling a little bit. But I think somebody that day one though he can rush the passer, and that's something that he's special at. But he's got to get stronger because he's getting pushed around all over the Georgia game. He's getting pushed around most of the time on tape. He just doesn't really play the run really well. So it's something he needs to develop and get bigger and stronger there. But just bend wise and pass rush wise, I think he's a pretty special player.
Excellent stuff as always. I really appreciate you coming on today to break down the names that we might not be looking at that should be on the radar. Is there anyone that maybe we didn't talk about that you think we should talk about before I let you go?
Probably from the old line side of it. I think there's a lot of guys that we should talk about. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. Um, Probably some of the centers. I think like Luke Weipler
Okay.
from Ohio State. That's somebody that I really like. The center from Michigan. I can't think of his name, but his first name's Olu. I don't even want to try to pronounce his last name off the top of my head because I can't remember it. But number 55 for Michigan, Olu. He's a really good player. That's somebody I think like they could move around and show his versatility because he played guard and center and
Olu Watimi.
Michigan.
I tried.
Olu Altin. Oh yes, for
I
Michigan.
think that's
That guy.
it.
Really good tape. Jarrett Patterson from Notre Dame is another guy, another guard. That's a good player that they might look at, day 2, day 3. So I think the center position, not just the center position, but interior O line versatility. I think they're going to be looking for that. And like I said, they always like to, stack up on young offensive linemen. I think that's going to continue. So those are a couple of guys that I think they're going to really go like.
Thank you so much for the time again. You can find him on Twitter at the Mark John, and also everything that he does on YouTube with Tape Don't Lie. Marcus, thank you so much for the time again, and I will look forward to talking to you probably after the draft. Maybe get some analysis from you on who they did get in the Hall for the Las Vegas Raiders. Thank you
Yes.
again, and everybody, make sure to hit subscribe again wherever you are watching or listening on all of your podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. And I will be back next week. Make sure to keep up with everything that we do here at VegasNation.com.